You're listening to the REI Clarity Podcast, the show that guides you from confusion to clarity and sets you on the path to financial freedom faster. Learn how to grow your portfolio the right way with your host, REI advisor and co-founder of Shine Insurance, Jeremy Goodrich.
Hey, this is Jeremy Goodrich, your host for the REI Clarity Podcast. You know, in some of our episodes, specifically the last two episodes, we dig deep into a specific topic. With Dave Foster, we dug deep into 1031 exchanges. And with Amy Majori, we dug deep into networking and building relationships. And I thought those conversations were great. If you didn't listen to those episodes, I suggest you go back and listen to them. In this show today, we get very broad underneath the foundation of investing. Our guest is all about helping women invest in real estate. In fact, her mission is to help 1 million women achieve financial freedom through real estate, and she's doing that by coaching. She is an epic investor in her own right. She started with a house hack in LA and has grown to having a piece of over 1,000 properties and parts of multiple syndications. She's invested in many, many ways herself. And now she's chosen to move into coaching as well to help other women invest in real estate. And when I asked her at the beginning, what are the barriers that women specifically bring up as the reasons that they don't think they can invest in real estate, or they're not at a place to invest in real estate? And she gave 3 reasons. And then we kind of went down the rabbit hole of each of those reasons and talked about why they really aren't reasons at all. In fact, whether you're a man or a woman, whether you've invested in many properties or not, I think that the conversation we have in this episode will help you to look at what are the barriers in your mind around either real estate investing, starting, or around growing your real estate investment portfolio. And what are the answers that our guest really brings to the table as to how to solve those problems? So this is a broader conversation, but I think it's really about mindset, about mentality, and about solutions to some of the problems that we sort of set ourselves up with to have. I think in particularly, as we get deeper into the conversation, you'll say, wow, these are some ways of investing that maybe I hadn't even thought before. So not only does she bring us some mindset conversation and things to think about, she also brings us some concrete ways that we can invest and how we can know if our investments are solid investments or not, and how to make those decisions before you actually jump into them. All right, without further ado, my interview with Monick Halm. So on this show, we talk a lot about your why, the purpose of the work that we're doing, and finding a why that's bigger than just making money. I mean, money is certainly a part of it. And I think that you, at this point in your real estate journey, and we'll hear about your journey as we talk today, but you have a really great why, and that is to help 1 million women achieve financial freedom through real estate. I wonder how you got to that why and what that means for your forward progress in your journey.
That's such a good question. Yeah, that's my big, hairy, audacious goal, my big why. And it pushes me and strengthens me, scares me, and all of it, but it just really keeps me going. I got it came as a divine download. I started off as a lawyer, knew nothing about real estate investing. We kind of fell into real estate by accident, trying to afford a house. And I ended up getting a multifamily and figuring out, wow, my tenants can pay my mortgage and expenses. And then I house hacked by, not really knowing that was a thing. I just sort of fell into that. And then I met my husband, and he had a duplex. And after 2008, we started flipping. And I found a mentor and found out about bringing groups of investors to invest in real estate. And I went to a conference to learn how to do that more. And it was my first real estate conference. And during that conference, they were talking a lot about building your brand, building your network, thinking about who do you want to work with.
Mm-hmm.
And I was at the hotel gym the morning after the conference. We'd stayed that night because there was some social activity. And that morning before checking out, I was on the elliptical and just replaying the weekend. And I was just thinking back, who do I want to work with? And at that point, I'd started off as a lawyer, but then I'd somehow became an abundance coach for women. So I was really working with women around money. And then real estate was this thing on the side. And it was in the gym thinking about that room where I'd been learning all this amazing information. I was like, this is how you build wealth early in this world. And I was thinking about the 120 people that were there, and maybe 8 of us were women.
Yeah.
I was like, gosh, there are no women there. There's so few of us, way less than 10%. And I ended up joining this high-end mastermind, and there were 19 men and me. And it came as this, on that elliptical, this bring women into this room. 1 million women, financial freedom. The how of it, I had no idea. But the bring women here.
Yeah.
And show them how to do this. That was what came to me.
I think that I'm in the insurance world for the most part, and my wife and I run our agency together, and she just has so many stories of walking into rooms full of men and just being like, man, how do I bring more women into this space? How do I provide access to what is a profitable financial thing to more women? And so I think that was the light bulb was really awesome. So that light bulb stuck, obviously. You've been doing that ever since.
Stuck. Yeah. Yeah. It just came as, this is your mission, should you choose to accept it. And it just felt really good and right. So I did it. I went with it.
I love that. So when you talk with women about real estate investing, what are the first barriers they tend to bring up and say, well, here's why I think I can't do it?
Oh, good question. So I think one of the main ones, there's what they say, and then I think there are the underlying fears. But what they say, the one is, oh yeah, I'd love to do that when I have more money. Like I just don't have enough money to do that. So that's, I think, the big barrier. It feels very large and far away and impossible. It's partly why I just wrote and released my new book. I wrote a book called Investing in Real Estate from $1 to $1 million.
Yeah. For
every budget and every goddess, which I offer for free on my website, reigoddesses.com, as a digital download. But I wrote that book to respond to the 3 most common excuses that I hear from women, or their reasons why they can't do it. So the first was, I don't have the money, or I can't afford it yet. So I share a bunch of different strategies that actually start at $0. So a little to no money down strategies and up. But most of the strategies I talk about, you can get in from any budget.
Yeah.
So that's the first thing. The next thing that a lot of women, and I work with, they're busy professional women, is that they're too busy, and they have this sense that it's going to take a lot of time to invest in real estate, right? You have to go to open house and find properties and then get tenants, and then they're going to call you in the middle of the night about toilets and all of that stuff.
Right. Not enough time.
Yeah, it's going to take a lot of time, and I already have a job, and I already have kids, and I have this and I have that, and all of the things.
Totally. Okay, so number 1 is not enough money. Number 2 is not enough time. And I want to hear number 3, and then let's go back and dig in, because these are the things that people are saying, hey, these are the problems. And so then let's go through and dig in, like how we solve those problems.
Yeah, and the third one is that I think a lot of women don't want to do it because they don't want to be a landlord. They don't want that job of being a landlord, of having to deal with like the 3 T's: tenants, toilets, termites.
Yep.
And it's possible to invest in real estate without doing that. But I think those are 3 of the main stated reasons why people will not do it. And then there are underlying fears And they don't necessarily share, but those are a lot of the big whys.
So they don't have enough money, not enough time, and just plain don't want to be a landlord. I think I hear that all the time as well. And so let's start from the beginning there. So the argument of not having enough money. What are some ways that someone who does not have very much money can start investing in real estate?
Sure. So one of the easiest ways is starting with what you already have. You could short-term rental a room in your home. You could just use your current home, especially if you have a unit or a section that could be a part that could be sectioned off, but even a bedroom. I have a friend who actually, he has an apartment in West Hollywood. A lot of people want to be there. He rents out his sofa bed in his living room.
I see that on Airbnb. Like,
Yeah.
it's like 15, probably in West Hollywood is not that price, but around here it'd be like $15 a night. Like you can sleep in the little gazebo
like
behind my house.
$100 a night or something for like sofa bed in his 1-bedroom apartment.
So find something about your existing house.
Yeah, you could use that space for movie rental or film shoots or photography shoots, or sometimes you could just rent out space for people to use as meeting space. You could just use your current home without having to buy anything, without having to change anything. So that's one super easy strategy to just get in the game.
I think, yeah. And another thing that's sort of a step up from that is if you're thinking about buying a new home personally, like you're wanting to change homes for whatever reason, considering instead of selling the old home, could you so many people do that as a first step into real estate investing is, could I make money off of that current home in a different way than selling it? Thinking about that as well. I mean, that maybe not as easy as just posting your couch on Airbnb, but another thing I thought of.
Yeah. Or you are buying a home, but instead of buying a single family home that's just for you and just takes money out of your pocket, you can do it how I started. You buy a multifamily and you live in one unit, you rent out the others. You have your tenants paying your mortgage. If you are a veteran, then you can get 0% down financing, or if it's in a rural area, there's USDA financing. If you're a first-time homeowner, you can do an FHA loan. That's 3.5% down. So those are low-cost strategies for getting into real estate. And a lot of people often think, oh, I need to buy my own home first, and I really want to buy a home. It's like, well, buy a home that's an investment property too, and you can live in it for a while, and then you can upgrade if you really want to live by yourself into another home later.
Yeah, I have a client right now who's doing a 4-plex, and he's living in one, which is pretty much the biggest I've seen someone house hack in, where it's usually a duplex or something like that.
Yeah, it'll 1 to 4 units, so up to 4 units you can do that, and all of those loans will work for it, and the income that you would receive can count towards your debt to income ratio. So it's a really great strategy for getting in the game.
And it's important to note that the 1 to 4 units, the reason for that is that's where the lender, the loans line cuts off, if I said that right? Once you get into 5 units, now you're getting into commercial loans. It's an entire different conversation. So it does need to be 1 to 4 units to make that lending process work right.
And those VA, USDA, those FHA loans are only for owner occupied and residential. So only 1 to 4 units.
Okay, so those were some examples of how to do it even if you don't have any money. I think the third one that I might add is if you're finding deals and getting them to people with money and making a little bit money off of wholesaling. And I think that's the other way that do you help folks with wholesaling a lot and that are coming into what you're doing?
Somewhat. There are a few of my students that are interested in that. I believe real estate investing is not one size fits all. So I have different, so my goddesses come, we help them find a plan that makes sense for them. And so some want to wholesale, especially to get some money so that they can put into more passive investing opportunities. Yeah.
Okay. So not having enough money is one of the barriers. And we've just described 2 or 3 different ways where that barrier does not have to be there. You can come up with solutions to help. I love that.
Yeah.
Okay, the second barrier you said was not having enough time, which I think is a very fair barrier. So what are some solutions to that?
Well, you started talking about it in the introduction, that there are ways that you can invest very passively. there's a little bit of time upfront vetting a deal. But after you vet it, you put your money in and you wait for it to come back with friends. And so there are different strategies that are very low time. So one is what I do. I bring groups of investors together to purchase larger properties. So we have passive investors in those for our syndications. So you can be a passive investor in a syndication. Those tend to, a fairly typical minimum for a syndication is $50,000. So it's not a low money, it's not a low money strategy. Syndication is, but it is a quite lucrative passive investing strategy. Yeah. Other strategies that are passive, there are these online real estate investment trusts that, and I'm in my book, I mentioned several that you can invest in. And one I share in the book that's as low as $100 to get into that one as a start. So, and so there's those strategies that are passive. You buy in and it'll pay an interest, or you'll get a percentage, and the money grows way, way, way better than in a bank account, often better than in the stock market.
Yeah.
So there are those. And then another low time one is to be a private money lender. So maybe there's somebody that is a flipper and you lend them money at a fixed interest rate. Maybe they're paying you 10% for that money for a year, and they're using that money to flip. They're paying you back. It's secured by the real estate. So anything happens, you could end up with the property, or you don't get your money back. But it's a really passive way. You're just like the bank. You're lending your money and they pay you back with interest.
Huh. I want to dig into syndication a little bit, if that's okay. So that is invest. Okay, cool. It's investing in specific groups of property. So it's not like you're just putting money out into the world and hoping for the best. When you're doing the syndication process, you do have some say in the properties that you're investing in, right? Can you describe that a little bit more?
Yeah. So it is possible to syndicate or to be a passive investor in a fund that's blind. So in the sense that you're not going to know the specific property beforehand, but there might be a fund that is going to buy B-class multifamilies and this type of area. So you have a sense of what's going to be, but you don't know the specific property.
Yeah.
It is possible to be a passive investor in that type of fund. In the ones we do, they're project specific. So you would know, okay, we're going to be buying 250 units in Atlanta. And these are the buildings. This is the submarket. This is the team. This is our business plan. We normally buy value add properties. We buy a property where there's a way to add value, make it worth more, increase the income. And so there'll be a certain amount of cash flow that the investors will receive. And then when we sell at the end, they get a share of the equity, they get a share of the tax benefits. So they're owners. And it's a lot like buying shares in any company. It's just a real estate company.
You get presented an offering memorandum that is like, this is exactly what's going to happen.
Yeah. You get the business plan.
But you get the business plan. It's like, this is how how we're going to buy, what the investment is, what we plan to improve.
Yes.
We believe it's going to turn out for you and for all of us. Right.
Here are the rent comparables. And here's, where this property is below market this much. So we're going to bring it to this, looking at what's going on in the market. That's why we have this plan. We try to be as conservative as possible. Our goal is to under-promise, over-deliver as much as we can.
Absolutely.
Sometimes things happen, like there's a global pandemic and the economy shuts down and things don't quite turn out as we planned.
Right. In that kind of syndication, though, you are investing your $50,000 or $100,000 or $200,000, whatever it is you're investing it in a deal that you understand, that you know who the people are. Yes. And while you don't have control over it, which is good in some ways, because that means you don't have to do all the rehab and the finding, people and fixing toilets and termites and what was the third one? Toilets,
Tennis,
termites.
toilets, termites.
Oh, right. Yeah. And so you don't have to do all that stuff, but you know the deal. You're part of a specific deal, right?
Yes. And generally you need to have a pre-existing relationship with the people bringing the deal. So unless you're an accredited investor, it's not going to be with a stranger. The big part as a passive investor, the important things to look to vet, and I think this is an order of importance. First, the team, and then the market, and then the property and the plan with that property. But the team is most important.
So when you're syndicating, how do you vet a team? Like how do you know what are some of the things you look at to know whether a team is going to be successful at what they're doing?
I look at the team's track record of success. I also look at how, if things didn't go well, how did they deal with that? And I kind of like if somebody's had deals that didn't go well and they're still in the game.
I like that too. It tells you they could get through adversity.
Yes. For me, it's not that they've always knocked it out of the park, but just that what happened when you didn't knock it out of the park and how did that go? I was taught this really wonderful way of evaluating people by a mentor of mine, Beth Clifford, who talks about the 3 C's in evaluating potential partners and people to work with. I use this when I'm hiring people, when I'm looking at team members. And the 3 C's, the first is character. So I look at their character. How trustworthy are they? Are they in integrity? Do they do what they say they're going to do? How do they treat people? All people. So I really look at how they show up and treat others.
Yeah.
And so I look at character. That's the first thing, most important. You can't teach that or change that. And I believe that when somebody shows you who they are, I believe that.
Take it at face value and move on right there. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So evaluate their character.
Yeah.
Right? Like if they're cutting corners at that point, like, what does that mean for when you have a deeper relationship with them or you're in a partnership with them?
Yeah. And especially if they're going to be looking after your money. So
right. Yeah.
that's the first one, the character.
Yep.
The next is commitment. And so with the commitment, I look at that in a couple of ways. First is commitment to your mission, vision, values. So I have certain value when it comes to investing. I only want to invest where I can leave a property and a community better than I found it.
I love that.
And so not everyone has that value, right? Some people are like slumlords. They want to get
just want to make money, every dollar you can out of it.
You get every dollar out of a deal. That is not my value. And so it's really important to me that who I work with share that value of leaving a property and community better than we found it, right? And taking care of people. I also have a value of relationships for life. So I'm not transactional with people. Like we're going to do this and try to get everything I can out of them and then screw them. I want it to feel really good so that we work together again and again and again. And I want other people who share that value, I want to feel taken advantage of, and I want them to also want to create a lifetime relationship and show up in that way.
You want to be a part of a community of good people.
Yeah. Yeah.
And treat them well, and you're all working to make the world better, your community better, your pocketbook better, and your relationships with each other better, period.
Yes, those are the values that I hold, and I want to work with people who hold similar values.
Yeah.
And then in terms of also commitment, I want to work with people who are as committed to the project, our shared project, as who are fully committed to that. So if I'm investing with people, I want their full commitment to do what it takes to make it successful. I want my team members, if I hire a contractor, he needs to be committed and show up when he needs to show up and not have like 7 other projects.
That's hard to do. That is a hard thing to find. If you have, contractors that are committed over and over, when you find them, you want to keep them.
Time is money, right? Like you need people that will show up when they're meant to show up.
Yeah.
So it's that type of commitment. And then the last one is capacity. So that's their ability to do something. And capacity can be taught, though I have learned that you should work with the best. They won't cost you money. They'll make you money. So I could teach people things, but unless I personally am the best at it, then it doesn't make sense for me to teach. And I don't know if there's anything I'm the best at, but so I'd rather.
No, I know what you're saying. And
They already be great at what they do. And they'll teach me, they'll show me things. They'll see things I don't even think to know or think about. And so they'll add value just in their excellence. So with capacity, that is like not as high of importance, but I still rate it quite high. So I look to work with the best and people who have definitely the capacity to do what they need to do. They're ready to go, and not just are they ready to go, but they're excellent.
This episode of REI Clarity is brought to you by Shine Insurance. Shine Insurance is the #1 real estate specialist for investors in the Midwest. We work with real estate investors who have more than 10 units of single family, multifamily, and commercial real estate. At Shine, our process is simple, our policies are smart, and when you need us, we shine. Let me tell you another quick insurance story. So I had kind of the perfect scenario, the scenario I see all the time happen the other day. Someone called me. She was on vacation, actually. She was sitting in her vacation house, and all of her family and kids and grandkids and things like that were out running around doing whatever. And she was just noodling about her insurance, thinking about her insurance and the fact that she had 15 units, and she had 10 different insurance policies with 4 different insurance companies. Bills were coming all the time from different places. She really had to make sure she was on top of it. She was organizing it. She knew what was going on, and let alone the coverage on the policies, whether that was any good or not. She had zero advice, no advisor. And so I said to her, look, I would love to organize what you have. I'd love to put together a proposal. I'd love to make that with one company. I'd love to make it streamlined so it's really, really clear. And I would love to be your insurance advisor over time and prove to you over and over again the value of working with us. She ultimately decided to work with us. We were able to save her some money, streamline her policy, make everything a lot easier, and she feels like she has an advisor right now. So if you're an investor in the Midwest, and by that I mean from North Carolina all the way up to Wisconsin, and you have a portfolio larger than 10 units, and you believe your insurance advisor is an important part of your team, or should be an important part of your team if they are not right now, then Shine is totally right for you. Please take 10 minutes to reach out right now at shineinsurance.com and change the way you feel about insurance. So when you're evaluating team, you start with character. And then it's commitment. Are they in this for the right reasons and the same reasons as I'm in this? And finally, capacity. Are they good at what they do and capable of doing it in the way that we need them to do it at this time?
Exactly.
That's how you evaluate team. And you said the second thing when you're doing work, and this could be true for really syndication or any kind of real estate investment, what you're going through right now, evaluating that the team is there. And then number 2, evaluating the market. Tell me a little bit about how you evaluate a market.
So there are certain things that I look for with markets, and it can vary a little bit depending on the asset class that I'm doing. But for the most part, I'm looking for investments in places where there's job and population growth, where there's a diverse local market. So like right now, markets that were very heavily entertainment and hospitality based, like Las Vegas or Orlando, are struggling, right? They're hurting, and it's going to probably take a while for them to come back. So that's why I like really, it's not, and everyone's heard of that one factory town, right? The factory closes down, the town becomes a ghost town, right?
Everybody's gone.
Yeah, same if it's a one industry town. Hospitality goes away, and like Vegas is a ghost town. Or you want multiple industries, multiple companies, and the more of those you have, the more likely you are to have tenants that will want to rent your stuff, and the more successful you'll be. So you want it to be in a market that is successful. There are other factors I look at too, like the familiarity, but
those
like
are great.
I said,
Yeah, job and population growth, so that it is a growing town in multiple ways, and then that there's a diversity of industry. a diversity of things that are going on there to make sure that one thing doesn't kill that space. So that makes sense. And I'm sure there's tons more about finding a market, but for a podcast episode, that's a good start. Top things.
That works. You won't go wrong if you have those things happening.
Yeah.
It's hard to find an investment that will do poorly in that type of market.
Okay, cool. And then finally, you found the market. You're feeling good about your team. You're feeling good about your market. And now we're going to look at the property itself. What are some top things you want to see in the property?
So again, this depends on the asset class. Generally, I'm looking at where is the value add. And then in terms of the numbers, I'll look at the property and I'll look at the assumptions that the sponsors are making. Are they being overly aggressive in terms of rent increases per year? Are they overly aggressive in terms of the exit cap rate they're seeing? Are they what's the financing like? So I start to look at the number, then I go into the numbers and I look at the assumptions that they've made. Sometimes people have really aggressive assumptions, even if they're looking at data from the past 10 years, right? Mm-hmm. They're looking like 2010 to the beginning of like 2019, 2009 to 2019. And they're like, well, we've had this level of growth and we've had this. So I'm going to imagine it's going to keep growing at that rate.
Yeah.
And so I would look and go, definitely, I don't think so. But even a year or two ago, it's like to imagine that we weren't going to have a recession anytime soon and that for the next 5 years, we'd continue to rise. So I knew a recession was coming. I didn't know when, but I knew we were overdue. Yeah, I didn't realize it'd be quite as extreme as what we're going through right now, but
that it's not going to keep going up. So when you start getting into the property, whether it's syndication or whether it's for a 300 unit property or whether it's for like a single family home down the street from your main home, the idea that you've got to understand the numbers and you've got to understand that particular property. It's a mix between the numbers and the boots on the ground of how you make decisions is where you go with that property.
The numbers need to make sense.
Yeah.
And the assumptions need to make sense.
Okay, cool. So what's fun is we've made like 10 lists of 3 things in this conversation. And so I'm going to sort of start walking backwards through our conversation so it gets at everything. So we just really broke down, and I thought it was amazing how we look at deals. We're focusing on syndication, but I think really deals in almost any scenario. Mm-hmm. What you described makes sense. And we were back on how we got there was talking about not having enough time. And saying, well, here are the ways that you can passively invest. And so we just dug deep into syndication and how to do that. And then you talked about 2 others that I want to hit on really quickly. One is online trusts. And why that's interesting to me is it seems like it's a much lower barrier to entry, right? Does that work the same as syndication? Like you find a trust and then you just kind of do the same deal. It's just a lower barrier, or how does that work?
It actually is very similar. It's just under a different regulatory framework. So this is not something that as an investor, you necessarily need to worry about. So with the larger syndications, all of it is governed under the Securities and Exchange Commission. All of these are offerings or types of securities. There are exceptions to registering that the larger syndications will follow. These online ones, they fall under a different category. You do have to register with the SEC. I'm in the process of creating one myself right now. So it just allows you to advertise to non-accredited investors. There's more SEC scrutiny because you are advertising to ordinary people and they can invest in your deals. Yeah, for otherwise, though, the main difference is there's a much lower barrier to entry. And with these 2, you're not usually going to have the tax benefits that you do with the syndications. A lot of people don't realize the awesome tax benefits that real estate provides.
Yeah.
I didn't until I first found out. I always thought the more money you make, the more you pay in taxes, right? That's what we're taught, right?
Which isn't necessarily true in real estate.
It's not true when it comes to real estate. I remember I have a friend who's a super successful businessman, found himself owing $500,000 to the IRS one year from his business, and he found out that with real estate could help you lower your taxes. So he bought an apartment building which was making money. It was actually making six figures a year. But that apartment building, because of the way the tax code is structured and depreciation and other deductions, just buying that building brought his tax bill down from $500,000 to zero.
Yeah, because that gain was invested. So he was probably able to defer that tax. And
he was able to take a lot of depreciation.
Absolutely.
Off of the building. So a lot of times real estate, even though you have an income, for tax purposes, it's a loss. So a lot of people want to invest in real estate, not just because of the income it provides, but because of the tax benefits.
Yeah, absolutely. And if listeners want to hear even more on tax topic, 2 episodes ago, we had Dave Foster talking about 1031 exchanges in specific, but then kind of expanding out from 1031 exchanges into the tax benefits in general and what the pros are, what the cons are of quite a few different moves. So, there's a whole episode on tax benefits that was super awesome.
Check that out if you haven't.
Okay, so lower barrier to entry, but some of the benefits aren't there, which would make sense, because of the way that's set up. And then finally, being a private money lender, which could be probably 10 episodes of this podcast, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But the basic premise. Why don't you lay out the basic premise of private money lending?
Yeah, I mean, it's a loan. You're giving somebody a loan so that they can invest in real estate, and ideally, your loan is secured by the real estate. Make sure it's secured by the real estate. Yeah.
Have a good lawyer, or at least have a good mentor who knows, how to legally do these things. Because you're a former lawyer, obviously. When you get into private money lending or a lot of things in real estate, the contracts are everything. If you're doing lease options and things like that, the contracts are everything when it comes down to if there's a disagreement between one side and the other. And so that's why, it doesn't mean you have to become an expert on contract law. It means you have to trust people to help you to make sure that those contracts are the right.
Just make sure you have a contract and your right is recorded. So it has to attach to the deed so that anything happens, you could get paid back, or you can acquire the property and get paid back. So that's the only word of warning I would give. But otherwise, it's fairly simple. It's a loan. You guys would agree on the terms. You'd agree on the interest rate, and you'd want to see their business plan and what they're planning to do and their track record, and check their credit. See how who you're lending your money to. Make sure it's somebody that you like, that you can trust. But it's a really great way to have your money growing and without you having to do anything.
Yeah, you're completely passive. And in all 3 of those scenarios, you're really, once you drop the money, you are completely passive in the process. And then whatever the agreement is on how that money comes back to you is how it comes back to you. And that's it. So no excuse of not having enough time. I think that's what we got to there. So then the third one is not wanting to be a landlord. And I think in a lot of ways we just answered that.
Yeah.
But how would you answer, in addition to what you've already said, the idea of not wanting to be a landlord?
Yeah, so all of those passive ones, you're not going to be a landlord. But there's some other strategies that are sort of in the middle, a little more active and can be quite lucrative, but they don't require you to be a landlord. So there's tax lien investing. So you can invest so if people don't pay their property taxes, the municipality will put a lien on the property, and they set it up so that investors can buy these liens and get paid back with interest, or in some cases end up with the property. Mm-hmm. So you can invest in tax liens. I think the highest tax lien interest rate in the country is 36%. That's one place.
And you'd be charging that interest rate in those cases for them to get the property back, essentially.
Yeah,
right?
And the government is in charge of collecting it for you. So they'll make sure you get paid back with interest. So tax liens, one way. Another way is note investing. That's like being the bank. So the banks, that's what they invest in. When they give you a mortgage, there's a note, a promise to pay. And banks are not nonprofits. They make a lot of money, and because notes are very lucrative.
Yeah.
And you pay mostly interest up front, and that goes down over time. But you can invest in performing notes, so the person's paying. You can invest in non-performing notes when the person has stopped paying on the rent on their mortgage. And that might seem really weird why you would do that, but you can do that because you can buy them really for like pennies on the dollar.
Very cheap to get in. Yeah.
Yeah, 40 cents on the dollar, end up with this note for $40,000, $100,000 note. And there are a lot of different ways that you can work that note, negotiate it, the best of which is helping that person, that family, stay in their home. You can lower their pay because you have such a spread. You can lower their payments and lower their debt and help them to stay. Still have a very, very lucrative and good return for yourself, but helping them to stay in their homes.
That's interesting. So that's one way you can serve a community, like find ways to make money and serve at the same time.
Yeah.
Doing good by help. We rise by lifting others.
You don't own the house. You just own the note. So
yeah.
You're not dealing with the tenants and the toilets and the door. They still are the homeowners.
That's awesome.
Just a bank.
Yeah.
So those are a couple of strategies that where you don't have to be the landlord, in addition to the passive strategies we mentioned before.
So, I mean, clearly we don't have enough money, or we don't have enough time, or we don't want to be a landlord. Over the course of this conversation, you've proven just a couple of examples of why those excuses really don't make a lot of sense. And obviously, coming back to your mission of helping 1 million women achieve financial freedom through real estate, like this is the foundation, right? This is the very basic idea that then when women come and want to work with you, you say, okay, how do you want to do this, right? So, well, I think that we got there. I mean, we just went through the three reasons why people say they can't do it. And we systematically said these are why those are not good excuses, and why if you want to make money, if you want to find financial freedom through real estate, you can actually do that. And I think one of the neatest things about now is that there really are great mentors like yourself who are out there, who've done it, and who are willing to sit down and listen and bring together a community of women, a community of people who want to find financial freedom in whatever strategy, whatever their life is bringing them, and make their life a better life. I don't know where I was going with that, but I really appreciate what you're doing. Before we finish, is there any last thing that you just want to share for listeners who are sitting there thinking, oh my gosh, if she can do it, I can do it?
Well, I would love to share some resources that I have available. So I mentioned this book, Investing in Real Estate from $1 to $1 million.
Yep.
You can get a free digital download from my website, reigoddesses.com. Also, we are having a really special 3-day event. It's our signature event, our Wealth Through Real Estate event. This time it's going to be virtual, so you can join us from your home or office. And it's fun, it's fabulous, it's life-changing. You'll learn about real estate. I promise at the end you'll feel like you know more about real estate than 90% of the population. And you will meet this incredible network of other women investing in real estate. So that is happening. And you can find out more about that on our website, reigoddesses.com. And for anybody interested in passive investing opportunities, join our investor club. And also you can find that on the website. And, it's free to join and just to have access to more of these opportunities, because I am passionate, obsessed with helping women invest in real estate and to do so successfully. So please check all of that out.
Well, I think that's so key too, because connections is such a huge part of success in this world, and attending things like using resources like you've provided, but even attending events like you're creating, just create those connections, and that's how you grow. And so being a part of that makes a lot of sense. All right, Monick, my last question for everyone is the same, and I will ask the same thing of you. Who do you think that we should have on this show, REI Clarity, who could provide some value for our listeners around real estate investing and growing from a side hustle investor to really doing this full-time, whether passive full-time or really engaged? Who do you think would be a great guest for us to have on?
Oh my gosh, I have so many for you. So On my podcast, Real Estate Investor Goddesses, I interview a lot of really incredible women. I'm like 100 names are coming to me.
Well, I'll scroll through your list of folks you've had on your show and definitely connect from that.
I almost too many. I'm happy to introduce you to. The show is all women, so incredible women that are doing all sorts of really neat things in real estate.
Well, I'll check that out and we'll connect on those and we'll make sure we have some folks come on the show. I really appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule to talk with us today and really give us a foundation around what we can do with investing, whether passive or really getting out there and doing our own house hack wherever you are in that spectrum. I think you helped us understand that. So Monick, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Special thanks to Monick Halm for taking the time to share her insights with us. I really loved when we got into syndication and into how to make decisions about what syndications to get involved in, where she talked about how to pick your team, how to know your market, and how to figure out whether a property is right or not. I felt like that advice was good for syndication for sure, but was good for any kind of investing that you do, and that was awesome. So thank you so much, Monick, for spending the time with us. Who do you know that needs to hear this conversation? Maybe they've never heard of syndication before, and this gave an insight into how it works. Maybe they just really have barriers around real estate investing and whether it's right for them, and you just know that really is, and you'd love to share that with them. Grab your phone and send them this episode. Let's help everyone level up. We do read every single review. If you've been listening to this show for a while or even just this episode and you haven't given us a rating and review, I would encourage you to take your phone right now and go over there and give us a 5-star rating and leave a review. Describe what you liked about this show, maybe even this episode, and what you would like to see next. Finally, please join us at the REI Clarity Facebook group. It is the place to get clarity, make connections, and implement the systems and strategies we talk about here. Just search for REI Clarity, obviously, and look for the gold logo. All right, until the next time, here's to clarity that leads to financial freedom faster.